There was a whole way of making a living that most Americans have completely walked away from. Not because anyone forced them to. Just because somewhere between the television set and the first credit card and the shopping mall on the edge of town, a different kind of life came along. And the old one quietly faded. Your grandfather knew every hustle in this video. His father knew them even better. And the remarkable thing, the thing that will hit you before we're halfway through, is that every single one of them still works in 2026. Some of them work better than ever. 25 old-school money hustles. The ones Americans used to treat as second nature. Stick around to number 8. That one built entire neighborhoods worth of income on nothing more than a grinding wheel and a good pair of boots. Number 1. Hustle 1. The paper route. In the years before job titles and LinkedIn profiles existed, Americans had routes. Paper routes. You picked up a bundle of papers before anyone else was awake, folded each one right, and delivered them house by house in time for breakfast. By the 1950s, millions of Americans had some version of a route. It taught the basics of small business without calling it that. Customers who depended on you, a schedule you couldn't miss, collections at the end of the month. It faded when newspapers contracted and switched to adult drivers with cars. Today, DoorDash, Instacart, and Amazon Flex are the paper routes of 2026. Same before sunrise hustle, same route logic. Same dependable income, just with an app instead of a rubber band. Hustle 2, selling eggs and backyard produce. Every family that kept chickens faced the same Wednesday problem. Too many eggs. So they sold them. A handwritten sign at the end of a dirt road. Neighbors who came around because they trusted the source. 3 dozen eggs for $1. Farm families did the same with garden surpluses, sweet corn, tomatoes, cucumbers, butter beans. Whatever the garden gave more of than the family could eat. This hustle faded as commercial grocery stores became cheaper and backyard flocks became something suburban families simply didn't keep. Today it's back. Farmers markets in every city. Local Facebook groups for farm-fresh eggs, homesteaders listing surplus produce on apps. The hustle never stopped making sense. The platform just moved. Hustle 3. In Borders, if you had a spare room before World War II, the unspoken expectation was that you'd rent it out. This wasn't a last resort. A school teacher rented a room. A widow kept her mortgage by renting 2. A young couple took in a boarder for that extra cushion every month. During the Depression, taking in boarders was often the difference between keeping a home and losing it. It faded as real wages rose in the post-war boom, and the idea of a stranger in the house felt less normal. Today it's Airbnb, Furnished Finder, renting to a graduate student, same room, same transaction, same steady income. Americans just stopped calling it what it always was. Hustle 4, door-to-door sales. Before department stores and the internet, the sales rep who came to your door was how a great deal of American commerce moved. Companies like Fuller Brush, founded in 1906, built empires on men and women who walked neighborhoods with bags full of products and sold them one front porch at a time. Avon went door to door. Insurance agents went door to door. Encyclopedia salespeople went door to door. It declined because people got busier, got warier, and eventually got do not solicit signs. But the skill it required, direct persuasion, reading a prospect in 30 seconds, closing before anyone looked up a competitor, never became obsolete. Today, it's digital. The rep who could open a door with a stranger is the person who closes deals on Instagram or over Zoom. different tools. Same fundamental hustle. Hustle 5, the roadside stand A table, some vegetables, a handwritten price list, maybe a coffee can for the money on the honor system. That's the entire operation. Rural Americans ran roadside stands for generations. Produce in the summer, pumpkins in the fall, Christmas wreaths in December, honey whenever the bees were running. No middleman, no store lease, no employee. It slowed down as the interstate system shifted traffic patterns and corporate grocery chains undercut small producers on price. It looked like it might not survive the modern economy. Farm stands are growing again. Agritourism, where people drive out specifically to buy from a farm, is a multi-billion-dollar industry today. The customer who stopped for your grandfather's corn in 1955 will stop for yours in 2026. Hustle 6, washing windows, a bucket, a squeegee, some soapy water, and a willingness to show up on time. That's the entire equipment list for one of the oldest service businesses in American history. Window washers worked neighborhoods, small towns, and city business districts for as long as buildings had glass. What made this hustle durable was its nature. Dirt comes back. A business that pays you to clean their windows on the first of every month is a recurring revenue stream. The same logic as any subscription service, just with a ladder. It faded from common knowledge as people started thinking of service work as something you hire a big company to do, not an individual. Solo window washers who service commercial properties are building 5-figure monthly businesses in 2026. Startup cost under $100. Hustle 7, wash and fold laundry. When most homes didn't have washing machines, women across America supplemented family income by taking in laundry from neighbors. A woman who could take in laundry from 3 or 4 families had real, consistent income every week. No boss, no commute, no permission required. This faded as home washing machines became universal in the 1950s. Every household doing its own wash was a small miracle for families and a death knell for the neighborhood laundress. Today, the reversal is happening. Busy professionals pay a premium for someone to pick up their laundry, wash it, fold it, and return it. Laundry apps and pickup services are growing businesses in cities across America. The work is identical. The platform is new. Hustle 8, the knife sharpener's route. This is the one worth waiting for. Before every kitchen had cheap knives from a big box store, people cared deeply about the tools they cooked with. A good knife was an investment. A dull knife was a liability. So they had a person who came around. The traveling knife sharpener, working a regular route through neighborhoods, sometimes by horse-drawn cart, later by truck or bicycle. A distinctive bell announced their arrival. Housewives brought their dull kitchen knives to the porch and came back inside with edges sharp enough to slice paper. This was not a charity. A good sharpener knew their regular customers by name, showed up on the same day every 2 or 4 weeks, and built a territory through trust and reliability. It faded because post-war knives got cheaper and disposable. Electric sharpeners appeared in stores. The traveling cart disappeared from most neighborhoods by the 1970s. The market for it never did. Commercial kitchens, restaurants, butcher shoepas, catering operations still need sharp knives desperately. Mobile knife sharpeners who service restaurants charge $5 to $10 per blade and do 20 or 30 blades in an afternoon. Solo operators are building routes worth thousands of dollars a month. The trade is technically identical to what the old sharpeners did. If your great-grandfather heard about this hustle today, he would not be surprised it still works. he would be surprised it ever stopped. Hustle 9 shoe. Shining shoe shine stands were fixtures of American public life for nearly a century. At train stations, barbershops, hotel lobbies, city street corners. Men who earned their living shining shoes were respected tradespeople with regular clientele. A good shine artist knew exactly how you liked your shoes and when you'd be walking by. The shoe shine stand faded as dress culture relaxed in the 1970s. Men started wearing sneakers to places that once required leather shoes. The daily shine became the occasional polish. Today, the premium shoe care market is growing. Airport shoe shine stations in major hubs charge $15 to $25 a shine. Custom shoe restoration services charge far more. The craft didn't disappear. The customers who valued it always came back. Hustle 10. Canning and sellings. Preserves long before any cottage food law existed on paper. American women were selling their jams, pickles, and preserves to neighbors and through local networks. This was how surplus harvest turned into extra income. The woman with an exceptional hand at strawberry preserves or a particularly good bread and butter pickle had something people wanted, and people paid. This faded as mass-produced jams and pickles cost less than the glass jar they came in. Making your own and selling it felt quaint, almost eccentric. Today, 49 states have cottage food laws that allow home producers to sell without a commercial kitchen. The cottage food industry has grown dramatically since 2010. Your great-grandmother would recognize this immediately. She'd just be surprised you need a law to allow what she always did naturally. Hustle 11. Scrap metal collecting, the rag and bone man, the scrap dealer. For generations, American cities had individuals who made their living collecting what other people threw away. Metal, rags, bones, collecting what other people threw away. Metal, rags, bones, and selling it to dealers. This was a full profession. Routes, regular stops, relationships with factories and households who held things aside. It declined as formal garbage collection became universal, and people stopped thinking of discarded metal as anything but trash. It never stopped paying. Copper, aluminum, and steel are worth real money at recycling. See aluminum and steel are worth real money at recycling centers today. People who work scrap routes, visiting construction sites, visiting construction sites, machine shops, and neighborhoods before bulk pickup, earn steady income. The math is the same as it always was. Find what others have understand its value. Sell it. Hustle 12. Sewing and alterations. Before ready-to-wear clothing became cheap in the 1950s, the alter clothing exceptionally. Take in a dress so it fit perfectly. Let out trousers without leaving a trace. Had XL, alterations work was a quiet home business requiring nothing more than a sewing machine and skill. It faded as fast fashion made clothing so cheap that replacing why pay to fix pants when new ones cost less than the fix? The answer is quality. People who own expensive clothing, tailored suits, wedding dresses, heirloom pieces, pay handsomely for skilled alteration work. Skilled tailors and alteration specialists are genuinely scarce. The waiting lists are real. The rates are real. Hustle 13. Music lessons at home. For a century, teaching music from home was one of the most piano lessons especially. The home music teacher ran a small business, scheduling, tracking 30 or 40 students a week. A fixture of community life from the 1880s through World War II. This model faded as community music programs and digital entertainment shifted how people engaged with music. Online music teaching through Zoom and dedicated platforms has removed the geography problem entirely. A piano or guitar teacher in a small town can now serve students across a dozen time zones. The rates are good. The business model is identical to what the home teacher always ran, just with a different room. Hustle 14. Tutoring one-on-one instruction has been a paid profession. Hustle 14. Tutoring one-on-one instruction has been a paid profession for as long as there's been knowledge to transmit. Hustle 14. Tutoring one-on-one instruction has been a paid profession for as long as there's been knowledge to transmit. Frontier school teachers tutored after hours. In the early 20th century, a young woman with a good education could build a tutoring practice in any town with children. The hustle faded as tutoring became associated with failure rather than ambition. The stigma softened over time, but the practice stayed narrower than it once was. Today, the tutoring market is enormous. Test prep tutors specializing in the SAT, LSAT, or GMAT earn $100 an hour or more. Online platforms have expanded the market to every subject at every level. What your great-grandmother's generation treated as completely normal is now one of the highest demand service businesses in the country. Hustle 15. Seasonal harvest work. Before mechanized agriculture took over the harvest, there was an annual ritual across rural America. When the crop was ready, you needed more hands than one family could provide. Seasonal harvest workers moved with the crops: cherries in Michigan in June, wheat in Kansas in July, apples in Washington in September. Some earned the equivalent of months of Hustle 15, seasonal harvest work. Before mechanized agriculture took over the harvest, there was an annual ritual across rural America. When the crop was ready, you needed more hands than one family could provide. Seasonal harvest workers moved with the crops: cherries in Michigan in June, wheat in Kansas in July, apples in Washington in September. Some earned the equivalent of months of ordinary wages in a few weeks. Mechanization eliminated most of these positions. The combine did in hours what hundreds of hands had done over days. Specialty crops, certain fruits and vegetables, still require hand harvesting. And the broader principle of following seasonal demand, whether in landscaping, holiday retail, or outdoor recreation, is still a functioning income strategy Americans used for generations and can still use today. Hustle 16. Making and selling handmade goods: quilts, baskets, candles, carved wooden toys, braided rugs. The things that American hands could make and sell were sold at county fairs, church bazaars, roadside tables, and through the mail for generations. This was not folk art for a museum. This was commerce. Women who could quilt built reputations that brought people to their door. It faded as mass production made handmade goods economically irrational for a generation that valued price over provenance. Today, the reversal is Hustle 16, making and selling handmade goods: quilts, baskets, candles, carved wooden toys, braided rugs. The things that American hands could make and sell were sold at county fairs, church bazaars, roadside tables, and through the mail for generations. This was not folk art for a museum. This was commerce. Women who could quilt built reputations that brought people to their door. It faded as mass production made handmade goods economically irrational for a generation that valued price over provenance. Today, the reversal is dramatic. Etsy has over 40 million active buyers specifically looking for handmade things that mass production cannot replicate. The county fair vendor with extraordinary quilts or hand-thrown pottery can now build a national reputation. The platform changed. The value of skilled handmade work did not. Hustle 17, selling firewood. There is something about firewood that gets to the heart of what these old hustles really were. Simple, physical, honest. Hustle 17, selling firewood. There is something, Hustle 17, selling firewood. There is something about firewood that gets to the heart of what these old hustles really were. Simple, physical, honest. There is something about firewood that gets to the heart of what these old hustles really were. Simple, physical, honest, simple, physical, honest, simple, physical, honest, simple, honest, simple, physical, honest. A man with land, trees, and a saw could always sell firewood, cut it in the spring, split it in the summer, stack it to season through the fall, sell it all winter. No inventory system, no marketing department. Just wood and the people who needed it. We lost this as central heating became standard and most Americans moved to places where firewood was a luxury. Somewhere in that shift, we also lost a certain directness. The clear connection between physical work, a natural resource, and a specific person who needed what you'd made. Today, a cord of seasoned firewood sells for $200 to $400 in most American markets. Rural land, a chainsaw, and a pickup truck are the entire business. The customers still want the same thing. Someone reliable who shows up with good wood and stacks it where you need it. Hustle 18. Flea market and swap meet. Vending long before eBay, there were trading posts, swap meets, and flea markets where Americans gathered on specific mornings to buy and sell things of every description. The vendors who made real money understood value. They knew what a vintage tool was worth. They recognized depression glass priced wrong by someone who didn't know what they had. This is not a faded skill. Flea markets still generate billions in annual American sales. Online equivalents, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, run the same logic at digital scale. The people who make real money at it today are the same type as always. They understand value, move inventory efficiently, and show up consistently. Hustle 19. Flipping buy something for less than it's worth, sell it for what it's worth. This is the oldest commercial instinct in American life. Peddlers did it in wagons on the frontier. Traders did it at estate sales from the earliest days of the Republic. The skill was always in the knowledge, knowing what something was worth that other people didn't. The era of cheap consumer goods dulled this instinct. When everything is disposable, nothing has a secondary market worth navigating. The secondary market has never been more liquid. Guitars, furniture, vintage clothing, sneakers, sports memorabilia, vinyl records. Vintage clothing, sneakers, sports memorabilia, vinyl records. The platforms, eBay, StockX, Whatnot, Reverb, are more efficient than any auction barn your great-grandfather drove to. People who understand the value of things are earning more than they ever have. Hustle 20. Selling home-cooked food. This one carries real weight. For generations of Black American women in the South and in northern cities, selling home-cooked food was not just a side hustle. It was often the primary hustle. When formal employment was closed off by discrimination, cooking was the route to economic independence. Selling plate lunches, catering a church gathering, making and selling sweet potato pies from a front porch. Serious business built on extraordinary skill and on a customer base that trusted the cook completely. This tradition found new channels as opportunities opened up across generations. Today, cottage food laws give home cooks legal standing in nearly every state. Apps like Chef and Eat With have created platforms for home-cooked food at scale. The cooking knowledge is the asset. It always was. Hustle 21, portrait and event photography. When a photograph was still an occasion, not just a tap on a screen, the traveling portrait photographer who set up a temporary studio in your town took family portraits in their best clothes and delivered finished prints weeks later was running a real route-based business. The premise that everyone with a smartphone is now a photographer hasn't replaced the professional. It's just created a different tier. The market for skilled photography has never been stronger. Weddings, headshots, real estate listings, brand photography for small businesses. The specific skill of making people look good, of capturing light and moment in a way a phone at arm's length cannot, is a genuine and well-compensated service. Your great-grandfather's traveling photographer understood this. The 2026 version of that hustle is thriving. Hustle 22, Christmas Tree Stand. For as long as Americans have decorated Christmas trees, someone had to sell them. In the early decades, that someone was often a farmer who grew them on his own land, loaded them on a truck, drove to a vacant lot in town, and sold them from Thanksgiving through Christmas. This is seasonal income at its most honest, 5 weeks of work. A specific asset, trees, a rented lot, some basic structures, and a customer base that shows up reliably every year without any advertising beyond a string of lights and a sign. Independent Christmas Tree stands in good locations with quality trees and personal service still generates substantial seasonal income. People who grew up choosing a tree on a cold lot with their families will drive past the big store to find a stand that feels like theirs. Hustle 3. Writing for pay. Americans have been paid to write since the first penny newspapers of the 1830s, when writers sold columns and correspondence to papers that ran them in exchange for cash. The freelance writer, producing written work on assignment for whoever needed it on whatever topic was required, has been a fixture of American commercial life for nearly 2 centuries. This faded from broad practice as writing became associated with credentialed professionals working for major publications. Today, the market is as wide open as it has ever been. Businesses need blog content. Agencies need copy. Authors need ghostwriters. The person your great-grandfather's generation called a hired pen is today called a content writer. The trade is identical. The market is larger. Hustle 24, repair work. This is the one that says the most about what we walked away from. In the early and mid-20th century, when something broke, you fixed it. Not just your own things, you fixed other people's things and got paid for it. The radio repairman, the watchmaker, the shoe cobbler, the appliance repairman who came to the house with a bag of parts and left everything working. These were essential tradespeople in constant demand because everyday objects were built to be repaired. And a radio that cost 2 weeks of wages was not thrown away when a tube burned out. We walked away from this because manufactured goods got cheaper and repair got relatively more expensive. 2 generations grew up without repair skills. And then something shifted. The right to repair movement. The backlash against throwaway culture. The recognition that repair skills are genuinely rare now and genuinely valuable because of it. A skilled appliance repairman can name his schedule. A good furniture restorer has a waiting list. The cobbler who can re-sole a quality boot books out weeks ahead. Your great-grandfather always knew what repair skills were worth. It just took a generation of throwing things away to remember it. Hustle 25, building a regular route. Here is what all 24 of the hustles above have in common, and what the 25th hustle really is. Every one of them, the paper route, the knife sharpener, the window washer, the egg seller, the laundress, the wood dealer, the flea market vendor, Every single one was built on the same foundation: a route, a regular set of customers, a schedule they could rely on, a person who showed up. Before any platforms or apps made it easier, before any legal frameworks formalized it, the old hustlers understood something that modern business schools spend enormous money trying to teach. Recurring income beats one-time income every time. The families who built extra income in the 1920s and 1930s and 1940s were not lucky. They were disciplined. They showed up. They built trust with the same people over and over until their hustle became as reliable as any paycheck. That model doesn't require an app or a loan or a pitch deck. It requires a skill, a set of people who need that skill, and the commitment to show up regularly and do the work. This is what we walked away from, and this is what's quietly coming back all across America right now. Not because anyone told people to, but because the math of it never stopped being true. Your grandfather knew this. His grandfather knew it better. And now, if you're paying attention, so do you. If any of these hustles reminded you of something your family used to do, or sparked something you want to try yourself, leave a comment below. This community remembers things worth remembering.